Alright, I haven't really been playing VGC much this season because of university and just life in general. But a few weeks ago, I did go to a mid-season showdown in Edinburgh, where I live, and I came second place. And a few people since then have asked to use my team and see my team, and they all thought it was really cool. So I thought, because I've not really been part of VGC since Worlds 2016, I'd make a team report just because I'm quite proud of it. You know, it's really fun, and it's got a lot of cool ideas to it, which I think, you know, you might find interesting. As you might have guessed from the title page, it's got a Raichu on it. The idea behind it actually came from Miller, who, this is before London, I think, was raving about how good Choice Specs Raichu would be. And you know, it's like, it's Miller, we just dismiss anything he says, we're just like, nah, Miller, shut up. But, you know, having the time and like not having to worry about qualifying for Worlds this year, I thought, you know, I do want to play this format, and I do really like Raichu. It's probably one of my favorite of the new Pokemon they introduced. And I thought, I'll try out Alolan Raichu with Choice Specs, because like there are a lot of things that make it really powerful if you do give it Electro Ball as well. Because in electric terrain, like, for those who don't know, like, Electro Ball gets more powerful the faster you are compared to the Pokemon that you're hitting. And modifiers like Choice Scarf and like electric terrain and tailwind all factor into that. And if they're paralyzed or if they're at minus speed and things like that, all of those contribute. So like, just like standard Raichu in electric terrain using Electro Ball hits anything lower than 89 speed for 150 base power. Like, that's a lot, especially as it's stab and then it's boosted by the electric terrain, and then it's boosted even further by Choice Specs. Like, you know, you pretty much, you have the ability to OHKO most things that are Trick Room orientated. I'll get to some damage calc shortly, but like, just to give you an idea, like Muck, for example, I remember seeing people discuss at one point in time, it's like, oh, what OHKO's Muck that isn't like Tectonic Rage? And well, this does. It stacks as well with the Tailwind, as I mentioned. So if you're in Tailwind and you've got Electro Ball, anything that's slower than Raichu naturally will be hit for 150 base power. So it's strong. Also, this is something that I actually tested out myself. The speed modifiers at the beginning of the turn don't play a factor in it. So if you don't have Tapu Koko in, but you've got Raichu, you go for Electro Ball while switching Tapu Koko in, so you set the terrain and then the attack goes off all in the same turn. The speed is factored in from then. The damage is done as if Raichu was at double speed. So yeah, onto the actual mons themselves. So obviously the entire team bases around like Raichu, which have gone for a really creative spread, as you can see. Attack wise though, because you're Choice Specs, I don't really see the point in Thunderbolt. You're not ever really in a situation where you want to do that. Volt Switch is probably one of my favorite attacks, because I love the positioning, I love the momentum you get if you Volt Switch, and like if they switch, then you've got the switch initiative. They've got, like, one of the main things I do with Volt Switch on this team is reset terrain, or get away from my weaknesses, because obviously with the entire basis of this team you're quite, you know, weak to ground. So like, between that and then Electro Ball out damaging Thunderbolt, there's really no reason to have it as your move. Because your choice specs, Hidden Power Ice actually OHKOs most Garchomp. I think the calc is there. Yeah, it does 102% minimum to just kind of standard no bulk Garchomp. Obviously that decreases if they're Assault Vest, they will live, but if they're Assault Vest, you can Volt Switch and Dazzling Gleam with Tapu Koko if you feel like you're worried that they're gonna survive. Psyshock is an interesting idea over Psychic, but there's two main reasons for it. The first being that in Psychic terrain, it's an actual 2-hit KO on Tapu Lele. So if you lose a Terrain War and you can't afford to or you don't bring Koko, and you can't afford to be switching around, and you can just lock into Psychic terrain, and you can just lock into Psyshock rather, and kind of no bulk Lele, so Life Orb Lele will die in 2 hits to a Psychic move, which is probably something they weren't expecting. It also OHKOs Nihilego, which Psychic does not, even with choice specs. Onto the main event though, the Electro Ball calcs. You can see them. So as I said, there's Muck there, OHKO'd. Muck needs 252 HP, 100 special defense minimum to have a very small chance of survival. I've calculated for Porygon 2 there, Gavin Michaels' physically defensive bold spread. Is it bold or relaxed? But his one, just because that shows the extreme levels of damage that you can do. On specially defensive spreads, you're doing, I think, between 60 and 70%, 65 and 75% maybe. It's not as low as just 60. It's in the upper part, but you can usually double into it with Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko, and Porygon will be removed that game, that turn rather, and it's not something that your opponent will be able to see coming unless they know it's coming. One of the most important things, I think, anyways, what with Snorlax's rising popularity, is that it has a chance to OHKO the kind of standard Snorlaxes that are going around. 25% isn't massive, but if you hit that thing for just a small amount of chip damage, maybe, I don't know, you catch it on a switch with a Dazzling Gleam or something like that, then Snorlax is going to see Raichu and think, oh, I can sit up on this, it doesn't matter, and you're going to Electro Ball and it's going to die. I have one of my matches from the mid-season showdown captured later on, where I will demonstrate this. It was pretty fun. So yeah, Raichu does a lot of damage. I believe if you've got the terrain advantage, Volt Switch OHKOs Tapu Fini, but I think it depends on how bulky they are. If they're just max HP and you've got the terrain, then Volt Switch will get it. I was in an NPA match earlier in the week, and Volt Switch out of terrain did 75% to their Tapu Fini, which was a Calm Mind Fini. It hadn't Calm Minded yet, but it did 75%, and that was in misty terrain. So it's a powerful. It's still a powerful option, and more often than not, you're probably going to want to be Volt Switching. I'd say Electro Ball is more of an end game, or if you can guarantee kind of a steamroll with it. Obviously with Raichu you kind of need Tapu Koko as well. The Koko I went for was just fairly basic, just focus sash, Volt Switch again, because the positioning is very important, I think, with this kind of team. It's very momentum based. It's very it's very aggressive. You gotta make a lot of predictions, but I like playing like that. So again, okay, yeah, there's the Thunderbolt calcs on from Tapu Koko in electric terrain onto the specially defensive Porygon Z, Porygon 2 rather, and as you can see, it does roughly about 40% minimum, which means if Raichu's doing say 65% with Electro Ball, then Porygon's guaranteed to be taken out that turn. The reason I went for Focus Sash is I didn't really see the need for Life Orb. Mostly because I knew I wanted to be switching around a lot, and I felt like Focus Sash offered me like that kind of contingency, like that one free switch. Like if I was desperate to get like Koko in and not lose it, you know, I just needed like some kind of like chip that turn. Like there, for example, I've got Garchomp. On kind of standard no ball Garchomp, Dazzling Gleam is still a 2-hit KO, even with Focus Sash. So if they're at like 40% and and you know they're maybe in Tailwind or something, you know, I've got that guaranteed hit off, which is something I liked about it. I mean, you can play around with different items yourself. Life Orb obviously will do more damage. I like the safety net myself of Focus Sash. The next mon I added was Garchomp, just because it's really useful. While I had 2 electric resists already, I didn't really have a way of beating other electric types, which obviously was a problem. I mean, I could hopefully outspeed them and outdamage them, but again, with Koko's speed tying all the time, like if it's a bit awkward. You're kind of playing with fire a bit there. Also, it's also just a nice answer to Marowak, which obviously can be quite a problem for quite an electric heavy team. Being able to just take it out in one hit with Ground DMZ is important. The spread is actually something I made months ago. This was before I knew I couldn't go to London, so I was like feeding like teams and things, and it was originally an Assault Vest spread that I was too lazy to change, but it still does a lot even without the Assault Vest, which is quite funny. The special defense raises the special defense means that Porygon 2's attack stat is raised instead of his special defense, special attack even. It means that Ice Beam from Porygon 2 at an unboosted level is a guaranteed 2-hit KO. It will not OHKO you unless they're quite heavily invested. Tectonic Rage from other Garchomp, just 28 HP and 4 defense guarantees you will. Well, it doesn't guarantee. You've got 6.3. They've only got 6.3% chance to OHKO you with their Tectonic Rage, which is, you know, about as good as you're gonna get, really, without over investing. The attack it might seem a bit low, but that's kind of intentional. If Muck is on full HP and I Tectonic Rage it and it protects, I do guaranteed less than 50%. So they will not activate their berry. Which means obviously you can just Earthquake them next turn. The special defense is nice because, aside from Ice Beam from Porygon 2, you're also living Life Orb Dazzling Gleam from Tapu, which is impressive because that thing is powerful and it's a problem, as well as max special attack Tapu Fini's Moonblast. This is in conjunction with the next mon, which actually I'll get to now. But as you can see on my Arcanine, I have Helping Hand. Tectonic Rage from my Garchomp will get other Garchomp and variants of Tapu Fini with Ground DMZ with Helping Hand support. That'd usually be just my kind of like quick way through them. I didn't explain the moves properly. But like, yeah, Farfang was just as another answer to Cortana, Poison Jab, just for the other Phoenix. You don't really need dragon coverage in this meta. Garchomp's really the only dragon knocking around, and with misty terrain everywhere, it's just not worth it. Back to Arcanine though. Arcanine, I wanted it to be really powerful, but I also wanted it to stick around a bit, which is why I gave it the Aguave Berry. More often than not, Flare Blitz would be what would be activating the Aguave Berry. It's probably worth switching to a more defensive Arcanine, because you're going to be switching around quite a lot. And in updates to the team, I have made that change, but this is the Arcanine I used at the mid-season showdown. Yeah, so I settled on Arcanine because I wanted extreme speed, I wanted priority, and I wanted, and with that, you know, Flare Blitz seemed like the obvious way to go, because you don't want to mix. I never found myself using Snarl a lot, and I didn't really see the need in Wild Charge when I had Tapu, Koko and Raichu already on the team, so I felt like Helping Hand was just a nice kind of like, I'm backed into a corner, I don't know what else to do, I'll go for this, and if hopefully something dies, you know, then maybe I can get out of it. Helping Hand will mean that I'm like, things like Raichu's Electric Ball will be a guarantee on Snorlax. It may be a guarantee on Specially Defensive Porygon 2, I'm not 100%, obviously it will be on the physically defensive. Like I mentioned with Garchomp, it means that it can 1v1 over Garchomp. And also potentially take a surprise knockout on Tapu Fini or Tapu Lele with its Z move. The 100 speed was just to outspeed max speed Adamant Tapu Bulu. I feel like there was another thing that I outsped that I made it that speed for. I may have just been like speed creeping like other Arcanine and Tapu Lele, their neutral nature, but like I can't remember, because again I made the spread quite a while ago. It also outspeeds Choice Scarf, Kartana and Tailwind, which obviously is useful because Arcanine is, you know, one of the main ways to deal with Kartana. Yeah, one of the reasons I wanted a really powerful Flare Blitz was just because things like big offensive threats like Tapu Lele are really physically frail. So again, if I'm encountering like Life Orb Tapu Lele, so the no bulk Lele, or Scarf, I think they're no bulk as well, I have a chance to Oko with my Flare Blitz if I'm not a -1, which is quite impressive. And then if they're Life Orb and they survive, then they're probably going to die to Life Orb recoil anyways. The special defense investment again means that Porygon 2 gets the attack raise instead of the special attack raise, but also quite nicely means that at +1, any modest Tapu Fini with less than 84 investment in special attack will only have a 6.3% chance to Oko, which is nice. Which means that Arcanine could potentially stick around for an extra turn. You know, it would activate its berry. You could get extreme speed off if it's in like range of that, or if something else is, or you could Helping Hand to help get rid of it. You know, there's a lot of benefits to kind of sticking around. Next, I noticed obviously like I was having a big problem with ground types. So I wanted to add Araquanid because it was a water type that beat them, but also it resists because it is a bug type. My spread isn't anything fancy. It was also like I went for minimum speed because I figured it would be a nice kind of like secondary failsafe to Trick Room. Like I have a few like anti-Trick Room options. The first being obviously just kill them with Raichu. But this was the second, and the third we'll see shortly. But yeah, I didn't really know what to do for the moveset, which is why I have White Guard, Protect, and Toxic. Bug Bite is a really good idea, because then you can steal like Snorlaxes and Mux Berries, and I don't think they can recycle them if they've been stolen. The reason I went for Toxic was just so that my team wasn't completely walled by Gastrodon, and I could just kind of Toxic it and then kind of hopefully stall it out. Which actually did happen in the mid-season showdown. It wasn't against a Gastrodon; it was against a Milotic, and I Toxiced it, and then I protected, and then I liquidated it. But then I accidentally lowered its special defense, its physical defense, so it got a +2 attack, special attack raise. I was like, oh. And if I didn't have Toxic, then that game would have been very difficult for me to win, because the Toxic damage racking up put it in range of Waterium Z. As a defensive calc, the max HP 20 special defense allows it to live Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko, non-Life Orb Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko in electric terrain, which is really impressive, because that's stab super effective in electric terrain. The rest are just kind of like fun, like what does it KO with Hydro Vortex. You have a 75% chance to Oko Nihilego through Protect, which is fun. These next two calcs are especially fun, but I'm going to explain shortly why they're -2, why it involves -2. But yeah, -2 defense. Tapu Fini has an 81.3% chance to be Oko'd by Hydro Vortex from Araquanid. That's a Tapu Fini. And wow, that's even more insane. Like, look at that, and then the Porygon 2. That's max defense, like bold. Porygon 2 a -2 defense is guaranteed Oko. Like, these are Araquanid is a very, very powerful mon. Something I'd been wanting to use for a while. It may seem a bit like an odd kind of like, oh, it's not doing there on the team, but I just sort of threw it in there because I was like, oh, I need a ground resist, I need like White Guard, it would be nice, and I wanted to use one. But yeah, the reason for the -2 is come with the final Pokemon, which is probably one of the more fun Pokemon on the team, which is Murkrow. Initially I had an idea of using Mandibuzz, but I don't like Mandibuzz. I find it too slow. Which is why I went for Murkrow, like that nice prankster. Tailwind was primarily used just to match opposing Tailwinds. If they've got Mandibuzz or Drifblim, they can set up Tailwind, but then I can just bring in Murkrow and Tailwind myself, and like there's no way they can stop that because it's prankster. They can't. I mean, they could taunt me on the switch, but that'd be obviously quite a big read. Obviously it does power up Raichu considerably more, and it does like put me into a kind of an advantageous position if like they've got like a Scarf Bond left or something. But like I said, primarily it was just to match Tailwind, so I wasn't fighting uphill. The reason for the -2s is because I didn't know what to put on the last slot, so I just thought, oh, I'll play around with Screech, that'll be fun. Like, I've got Psyshock, I've got physical Arcanine, I've got physical Garchomp, I've got Araquanid, which is already super powerful. I'll just Screech, it'll be great, and then it'll power up my Foul Play as well. At the mid-season showdown, I never used Screech, but yeah, it's a fun idea, and you saw the benefits with Araquanid. When I made adaptations to this team, I played around with Haze over Screech as a way to stop calm minding things or to stop EV boosting and stuff like that. So I mean, there's plenty of options to have in the final slot. I just thought because it was a mid-season showdown in my hometown, I was like, I'll play something fun. Foul Play is just for offense, and finally Quash was my final answer to Trick Room. If they set up Trick Room, I can just delay their sweeper and then hopefully hit them to knock them out with other things, which is very useful. Came in a lot. It came in very in handy. Or also, if you know their scarf, you know, there's a number of ways where it came in handy. The spread's fairly kind of basic. I'm actually wasting 4 EVs, but it was necessary because I wanted the 4-speed investment. The 4-speed allows you to outspeed max speed neutral nature Pheromosa in Tailwind, and Full Play is a 2-hit KO. And I don't think it can OHKO you back. The 44 defense investment is basically just, if you run, like, say, Bold Murkrow, it's the equivalent of running 252, 252 Bold. And then obviously you get more special, you get more points to play around with. And that was useful, as you can see, because the special defense investment actually comes quite in handy and cuts it quite fine, which you wouldn't be able to get with the defensive invested one. Like, as you can see, Choice Specs Dazzling Gleam from Tapu Koko only does about 73%, so you can switch on it, get a Tailwind up, or quash it to make Garchomp go before it, or, you know, like various different things. Discharge from Life Orb Tapu Koko does 98.2% maximum, so again you're living that move, so you've got that extra turn to do something, and then also you're guaranteed survival against Tapu Lule's Life Orb Dazzling Gleam. The next slide is just things that I found a bit of a problem when using the team. Ninetales itself wasn't an issue, because Raichu and Tapu Koko make short work of it. It can't really do anything to Arcanine. While it's got Freeze Dry for Araquanid, it still loses to Araquanid. It's just, if it gets Roller Veil up, everything becomes infinitely harder. Because the whole basis of the team is to kind of overwhelm your opponent early, like pressure them with, you know, with momentum. You're Volt Switching, you're doing a lot of damage with Raichu because of Choice Specs, because of Electric Terrain, but you're also getting yourself into a better position. You know, like, you want to be constantly whittling them down at a rate where they can't kind of adjust to it, and Aurora Veil slows that down quite a lot. But again, if you call correctly, like if they lead Ninetales and you call correctly, you can shut it down. One of the things I did think about doing over Screech was having Sunny Day, because it would also help with like sand and rain. On Murkrow, just as a priority move. So if they go for Aurora Veil that turn, it doesn't do anything. And if they go for Blizzard, then there's a chance of it missing. So again, that's something you could change yourself. Ground types that aren't Garchomp, obviously, still a bit of a problem. Krookodile less so, because it's weak to Dazzling Gleam. Yeah, but Mudsdale is a big problem, particularly if they have their own Tapu Koko and something like Cortana. Just things that exert pressure on our kind of only way of dealing with them, which is Araquanid. Then obviously Mudsdale's just going to sit in front of you, and you can't Volt Switch. I mean, you could Psyshock it, but then obviously like that comes with its own problem, because you keep raising its defense, and a lot of Mudsdale are AB, so like you can't hit them hard on that side either. It's just a really awkward mon. Gastrodon, while being a ground type that isn't Garchomp, has its own little section, because it comes with its own problems, because it, unlike Mudsdale and Krookodile, doesn't lose to Araquanid. luckily at the mid-season showdown I only faced one Gastrodon, and I just ignored it and took out all of its friends. But that depends entirely, like how much of a problem Gastrodon's going to be depends entirely on what is supporting it, and obviously I guess how it's built as well. But really the only way on the team to deal with it, aside from kind of chip damage with like Dazzling Gleam, and I suppose you can Tectonic Rage it, and it might get it if you Helping Hand or if you Screech. But it's just like toxic. There's a lot of ways to play around it, but they involve kind of investing and playing around it, so it just makes things very awkward. Life Orb Tapu Lele is also a massive problem because it just is so powerful. Because the whole idea is you want to be switching around, you want to be positioning yourself. If they get up terrain, then you want to position yourself so you're back in your own terrain. But then, like, if they're Life Orb, they don't need their terrain to be powerful. So, like, Moonblast is just going to KO things anyways. Which is, again, why I was kind of grateful to have Focus Sash on Tapu Koko. Again, like, if they're Life Orb, they're quite frail, so you can deal with them quickly, but it's managing them in a way where you deal with them without losing too much, and it can be quite awkward depending on your opponent. Mimikyu is kind of similar. It's not powerful. It's more just the fact that, like, if it sets up Trick Room, it's quite awkward because you need to make sure that you've broken the disguise in order to actually deal with it. So like Araquanid can come in and Waterium Z it, that's fine, but only if the disguise is broken. Otherwise then you've got to invest another turn, and it's awkward, and it depends on its supporting cast. I think I took an updated version of this team to the Sheffield Regionals, which was my first regionals since I think April last year. And I think one of my opponents had Trick Room Mimikyu with Mudsdale and Magnezone, which was just a terrible matchup. Literally, it was effectively an auto loss. There was nothing I could do there wasn't anything I could do to prevent that. So if you do want to use this team and you do want to adapt it, that's something to take into consideration, like how you're going to deal with that combination of things, or just any one of them as individuals. But like, yeah, Garchomp and Kartana themselves aren't so much issues, but they can be if you don't know what their item is. Like if you've been playing to get yourself into a situation where you're like, oh, this game's won, I just need them to bring in Garchomp, and then I just hit them with Dazzling Gleam, and then they reveal that they're Scarf, then obviously that's a problem. Kartana actually dies to Raichu in electric terrain if it's not Focus Sash or Assault Vest. So if it's like Z move, it's gonna drop to Electro Ball. Not Electro Ball, the other one. Volt Switch, depending on how it's built. Which is good, but like, again, if they come in with a surprise Scarf, that can be a problem. Those two as issues though aren't so much of a problem in best of 3 rather than they are in best of 1. Because obviously in best of 3, I would hope by like at least game 2 you'd have an idea of what you're up against, so you can plan more accordingly. But like, it's the surprise factor which can often be a bit of a problem with these two. Next, I'm going to actually include one of the games that I had from the mid-season showdown. Actually, this was me versus Andre, who ended up actually beating me in the final. I didn't drop a set until the finals, where I lost to Andre. But this is when me and him played in the Swiss rounds, and I think it showcases the team's kind of, I don't want to say gimmicks, but I mean they are gimmicks. It showcases the team's like kind of quirks in the best possible way. Cool. So this is me versus Andre, and this is game 3 of our round 4 in Swiss match. Like I said, like this is a good showcase for a lot of the techs of the team. So at this point in time, I know that's Life Orb Lele, and I know that he has Trick Room on his Nihilego. So I just want to really get rid of that Lele, or at least damage it, you know, and put it into a position where it's not going to be as much of a problem anymore. Oh, Nihilego was Sash, which is why I went for the Volt Switch there, onto it instead of doubling into the Lele. Murkrow comes in just in case he Psychics into Koko. That was a helpful for me, unfortunate for him crit, but it shows how much damage Raichu would have done with Volt Switch if I was in my own terrain. Benefits of Focus Sash here. Because of this survival, it means that I can now, 1, preserve my Koko, but 2, get rid of Lele. And position myself a bit better without having to jeopardize like my Raichu, for example. I go for the foul play here. I wasn't expecting it to do as much damage. I was just sort of hoping it would maybe do like 30%. But instead it actually ends up activating his berry. But this is fine because Snorlax is still taking about 10%. And then when I see him going for the curse, I get really happy because I haven't revealed Electro Ball at this point in time in the tournament yet. So what I'm expecting him to do is bring in Nihilego, go for Trick Room, and either just attack with Snorlax or Recycle. Because in my mind, he's feeling pretty safe with his Snorlax right now. And then it dies. At this point in time, he just kind of looked at me and started laughing, and he's like, I want to be really mad at that, but I can't. Like, that was so good. Now that Trick Room's set up, you get to see Raichu sweep in Trick Room with Quash. I know that I'm not going to die to either of Nihilego's attacks. So, and Buzzful obviously is the problem. So I Quash it, made it move last, and then one-shot it again with Electro Ball. At this point in time now, it's 4-on-1 with a Nihilego. Just go for Quash, just to guarantee the hit with Raichu. At this point, he realizes now that Raichu is the thing that's causing the problems, so he needs to he starts targeting it down. But Raichu actually has fairly decent special defense, so it modestly takes that. Unfortunately, with the terrain gone, the power of Electro Ball actually goes down considerably. So it does survive, it does hang on here. But yeah, this game is pretty much wrapped up at this point in time because I'm guaranteed to get the hit off before him. Trick Room is still up here, and I go for the Waterium Z just in case he protects. Quash was just, I don't know, just felt like suppressing Nihilego. Yeah. And that was the game. The final slide is just a picture of my trophy, my second place trophy for the mid-season showdown. It was a fun event. It was nice, you know, being able to wake up when I wanted to go to the event. It wasn't a huge turnout. There's about 30 masters there. Good number of worlds players though. Rachel, who's been to like 4 World Championships. Played her in Swiss. Boyd was there, who ended up on stream commentating a lot of my games. Jason was involved because he lives in Edinburgh anyways. But yeah, and other people would come from like various other places. I think Luke and Ben were both Worlds players. Benjamin at least qualified for Worlds. No, it was, for being local, it was still quite kind of a challenging place. But yeah, it was a fun event. It was a fun day. I got to do a lot with Raichu. Unfortunately, the stream doesn't exist anymore. It wasn't saved, so you can't go back and watch me blow through Swiss only to get my ass handed to me in the finals. But yeah, it was a good day, and I hope you enjoyed my team builder. I hope that you all use the team. I hope to see it on Showdown. I hope to see people like talking about it. I know it's not as fancy as it's like, wow, this is my second place at Worlds team or anything like that. But you know, this is my rest season, so I want to show that I'm still playing. I'm capable. But yeah, I hope you have fun with it, and don't forget to follow me on Twitter and that, I guess.